Yes, absolutely. Coming back from the portals of the underworld in spring break, Mexico, Tulum, Mexico, 2026, swimming in the cenotes with the beautiful crystal clear water and the tortugas, the Mayan ruins. Yes, coming back to DC just as the cherry blossoms make their maybe final debut. We're starting to see cracks at the SEC in this market structure bill going forward now. Rumors swirling that there's going to be a bill in place. Meanwhile, we've got war raging overseas, and we're going to the moon, everybody. We're circling all the way around, despite the Microsoft Office failures and faulty toilets in space. From underworld to outer space. How's it going on your coast?
Oh, it's a beautiful day here in Southern California. It's unfortunately the end of spring break. So happy Easter and happy Easter Monday to everyone. I know a lot of folks are taking the week off this week, which is super nice. But yeah, we've been following a lot of things besides what you just said. You have action on the West Coast with Polymarkets heating up just after the March Madness rush. And now we'll be, of course, heading into the NBA season rush of playoffs, which fits Polymarket and Kalshi's business model just perfectly. You have questions about the golden beads of urine that are floating in a weightless environment out in space. They look beautiful to the astronauts who are staring at them as they're scratching their heads and wondering, how was it that some 60 years ago the toilets worked perfectly and we can't seem to make it so that my pee won't just jettison out? A lot of people scratching their heads there. And then, look, we're staring down tax day. That's all that I see as I drive around LA are people out on the street dressed as the Statue of Liberty. This may be an LA specific thing, but there are people who dress up like the Statue of Liberty and stand
Liberty
outside
tax.
and hold huge signs that say prepare taxes here, and they dance and they spin them around, and some of them are on roller skates and they're pointing at a very a nondescript store at a strip mall where there's a line of people trying to get their taxes prepared. So it has that energy of that gotta have a little extra money in my purse. Maybe the Lakers will win this next game. No. I probably save it from my estimated tax payment. And everyone's wrestling with this tug of war in their own mind. And we have about 1 week and change to figure it out. So that's what's consuming me right now.
I think this Kalshi prediction markets, the kind of double whammy here from what you sent me about Kalshi hit with the Washington State lawsuit, and then the article that I sent you from Wired today that nobody knows how to file taxes on prediction market wins. So literally, they're trying to figure it out, right? And I'll play forth a really wild trifecta for you. We talk about on this show kind of this intersection, AI, crypto, blockchain, but simultaneously, it is very apparent that the US government is trying to figure out how to regulate crypto. We seem so close. We're trying to figure out how to regulate AI and all that has shook out of effective altruism. And we'll get to OpenAI and Anthropic data leaks and who's winning the AI war. But we don't know how to policy regulate AI. And then here comes prediction markets, and nobody knows how to file their taxes on prediction market wins, and it's a week away. So guess what? Have at it, guys. We don't know what to do.
I mean, that this fully mirrors, let's rewind time. We had a conversation, I remember vividly, because it was a conversation during pandemic when it was really difficult to get a PlayStation 5. I don't know if you remember this. It was a PlayStation 5 Pro. And it was really difficult to get the PlayStation 5 Pro, which did not have the disk drive, right? It was going to be the download-only version. And it was, during pandemic, everyone's just sitting around at home trying to buy stuff, and everyone's freaking out because they can't get it. And that was the exact same time that the administration at the time said, if you perform a transaction related to crypto that is more than $600 in value, then you have to declare it, which we were joking. Well, if you buy one PlayStation 5 and one additional controller, and just, I don't know, one game to play on it, you're north of $600. And the question is, well, are you going to tell anyone about it? Because on the tax forms, it said the first year, I want to say it was 2020 or 2019, do you own digital assets? Yes, no, just a little Question.
Do
Then
you?
the next year
Do
was, have
you?
you transacted anything over 600? And of course, yes, no. So then we're all kind of wringing our hands wondering, well, gosh, this is the iron clamp of Uncle Sam just saying, choke point right here. We're going to get you on taxes for basically transacting crypto to do what? Buy Christmas presents? That seems insane. And now fast forward to today, and not only is all of that just off the taxes, now there's this new thing called predictive markets, which is so woefully behind any true legislation that I feel like we're now in this place. I was just talking about this with someone over the weekend in what I call the shadow of the Colossus. Because while the prediction markets and the cost, let's add a couple of things, like the cost of AI managing images and videos, prediction markets and how do you regulate it, and then pick one other one, like going back to the moon. Those three things completely overshadow. Those are the colossuses that overshadow what we have been wanting to get clarity on, which is just the simple cryptocurrency markets. Is it a security? Is it managed by the CFTC? Can I stake it? If I do stake it, does that make me a bank? Do I have to get a permit to do that? How would I take money off and put money in? Do I onboard and offboard? Do I have to declare all these things? Now it's like, no one's saying anything about it because everyone's hyper-focused on the prediction markets and Kalshi and all these rules that have yet to be written. So not only is it a, hey guys, have fun and let's bet on March Madness next year and let's bet on the Oscars next year and just make a boatload of money, but also let's just not talk about what we're really doing with our normal Ethereum and Bitcoin wallets because clearly that's just no longer interesting. That's not cutting edge.
Well,
That's
they're
what
going
I'm
to
finding.
reach clarity. I think it gets passed because it's already happening. It's already in motion. I mean, you're seeing just this giant flood, all these ETFs. It's not even news anymore. It barely breaks through. Morgan Stanley's is going live tomorrow, I think. You know, it's like it's barely breaking through because it's already being greenlit. Everyone who was at Davos and at CES and in Consensus and all these other events, the cabal has already packed their bags and they're on to the next, right? And then you're starting to see this article you sent me about Kalshi onboarding ex-Democratic strategist amidst legal trouble. So here comes the next big shuffle when the entire graduating class of Coinbase 2020, they all end up at Kalshi and Polymarket and DraftKings and the next prediction market because they're going to need a lot of help to regulate how we handle this new betting on outcomes and
Investing in future outcomes.
Every time.
But let's also not forget that that feels sort of commensurate with this maturation. And we're seeing these maturations happen in much tighter time windows, right? The maturation of the Web 1 guys and then the consolidation took decades, right? And then you see the FANG companies rise up from that, right? This is how the internet comes to you. It's because of Facebook. It's because of Apple. It's because of Amazon. It's because of Microsoft and on down the list. But these tiny new windows of innovation are such that if you are Kalshi and you are Polymarket and you are creating investments in a predicted outcome and you already have Donald Trump Jr. as a member of your advisory board for both of those companies. Okay, let's not forget how crazy that is. The son by name, the namesake son of the current sitting president, not Eric Trump, it's Donald Trump Jr. And he is sitting on a board effectively of two companies of Coke and Pepsi who are offering two flavors of the same kind of product. And so if I'm someone sitting at the wheel of either of those places and I'm looking at my clock and I'm like, okay, well, we got like what? 2 years-ish? I mean, really, it's less before who knows what happens to all these guys. We better get some Dems in here, too, to get a little bit of a sense of policy of what might shift at the start of Jan 1, 2029, because if the White House doesn't stay under Republican governance, then a whole lot of things might change. And if we're not listening to people, like you said, that the class of the Coinbase is trying to find new jobs, but now there's a whole class of political, I don't know what you would call them, politicians who are more into tech, but suddenly they're moving out of congressional halls and into Silicon Valley, cubicles and basically saying, I have the phone numbers of, and here is my Rolodex, Remember in the old days of Web 1, a salesperson came in and showed you a Rolodex, literally, and said, I know all these brand managers at all these companies. You should hire me because I'll sell your product in to Procter & Gamble and to Verizon and to Coca-Cola. And you go, oh my God, that guy's a killer seller. He's got great relationships. Well, here comes a new guy who just shows you his phone and says, hey man, I've been DMing with 3 guys who like run the DOD and blah, 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 and just starts showing you like my political cred. And if you're in the business of running predictive future outcomes that involve invading foreign countries, it might make sense to have someone on your board or at least on your staff who knows a thing or two about who pulls those levers and how can you get around the legality of that. It's really fascinating, this shuffling of the cards. Like you said, I mean, the decks are getting stacked in front of us, like while we watch, and the magic trick's about to be performed.
Well, and they've performed it a number of times. I mean, including the president's Easter morning address tweet with the Polymarkets showing there was a 99% bet against the fact that he would say, praise be to Allah, or whatever was in the tweet, and somebody won that bet. Let me back up. Somebody took that bet to begin with. It doesn't get more blatant than that. And I think that there is going to need to be new rules written around how that gets settled. And this comes all the way back around to our whole thesis of, who's the arbiter of that truth? Well, right now there's one truth social network that I'm aware of, and I hope he can't be the arbiter of the content, the voting, and in this case, the betting on the future outcomes, because then we're in a really bad place.
Well, but who else? If you're the owner of a social network and you release a new set of services, a feature enhancement, which is you can invest in a predictive outcome, and you and your pals are the ones betting lots of money on it, then you kind of sort of want to make sure that the quote good guys win more than they lose. Now, what would be strange is if the same predicted outcome on Polymarket does not come true as the one on True Social, does not come true as the one on PayPal.
Yeah.
Does not. So how do you unify the different truths? It almost feels like you need a truth layer to reconcile at a meta level what all of the truths are. Because then you can say, well, there's 6 or 7 or 8 predictive future outcome markets, and 66% of them said one thing and 34% said another. Therefore, they all agree that 66% were correct all along. Maybe they almost behave like nodes in some bizarre future state.
It's like a basket of truths, and you average them all out, right? In some sort of truth ETF. New products will get created, new derivatives.
I feel like we should make that product right now.
I have said this for a long time, though, and you have kind of placed the seed of this layer that gets created where it sort of synthesizes and dashboard data analyzes the averages across all of these different networks in order to come up with whatever that percentage of truth outcome is. Averages on averages on averages. It's a new type of insurance policy. We could call it whatever we want to call it, but it's really fascinating.
You like to go back to insurance on that. You want to get insurance against the truth or the incorrect analysis of the truth.
Right. Well, the same way that Donald Jr. sitting on both boards is he's taking both bets. It doesn't matter whether it's Coke or Pepsi. It's not A or B. I'm going to take both because I'm going to win both. So you could bet on both sides of the truth and you could still win.
I suppose if you bet on one side of the truth at one point in time and then waited long enough to then bet on the other side at the same odds, then you could be playing that humbug where you're straddling the fence both ways.
It's now blowing my mind here of the time warp continuum of how we're going to keep track of where we are in the timeline. Yeah, I can't believe it does look like the Senate markup bill for clarity is going to actually come to fruition next week. They're saying April 13th that it is actually going to go for a Senate markup. If they've quietly reached an agreement, then that markup would be pretty quickly. That'll bring us right to May, where I hope you've got all your buys in before we all go away for the summer, because we won't be back till October. And I think that that's probably how the summer goes. We'll see. I think today will be a decisive day in terms of the markets and what Trump next erratic behavior, which can create these black swan events that can be predicted. Some will know when they are coming, some will not. I don't know where else to take us from Kalshi, AI, predictive markets, and what the next leg up looks like, because right now it does seem like we are in a bit of a spring holding pattern and have been for a little while. With it doesn't seem like there's a moment that's going to lead us to the truth quite yet.
No, and then one of the other big things, I mean, so what we're seeing, first of all, I think between now and the end of the term, the presidential term, we're only going to see Polymarkets and Kalshi increasing in popularity. I mean, it's already something that literally every kid in high school is aware of, and they look to that when they're making their other wagers around other parts of the world. And now we're heading in Los Angeles. One of the other major things that happened over the last weekend, the release of the lottery. You entered a lottery to purchase Olympic 28 tickets, and it gave you basically a pre-sale window, and you can go in for 24 hours. As soon as you jump in, you have 30 minutes to make your decisions. And if you get one of the earlier slots, then the prices are reasonable. And as the days go by, you're talking it could be $1,000 to go see a basketball game or flag football game or what have you. So you have that looming out there, the Olympics, which is going to just be a perfect playground for people who want to invest in future outcomes. But between now and July of 2028, what else do we have coming? Well, in April, May, June, July, in 2 to 3 months, we have World Cup coming to Los Angeles, coming to the Americas, but some major games here, which is a whole nother surge. And you have all these things that are going to require people to start to really get a really fast education about how this all works. And, what are stable coins? We still haven't had a conversation or clarity around that. And there's this article I just shot you this morning about this idea of the SEC's crypto safe harbor. And if you read about this, they're almost putting into play a whole bunch of new protections for companies who want to, quote, innovate and want to start creating these new products, because Kalshi and Polymarket and whatever PayPal turns on True Social is just the tip of the spear, right? There's going to be a ton of new services that can easily be copy pasted to create these types of markets. And there'll be markets that can become more niche. Like, they'll probably be the same way there was that, you remember, let's rewind it to before pandemic, when it's called Top Shots, I believe, which was
NBA
an original
Top Shots.
NFT Top Shots, where you're basically were getting these really great dunk videos, and they were minted on the blockchain. Collectible moments in basketball at the time, right? Which was super niche. And of course, you could go collect NFTs like that other places, like OpenSea and these other giant marketplaces. But Top Shot narrowed it because it was so NBA through and through, and everyone believed it and loved it. So I predict that we're going to see a proliferation of things like, well, why wouldn't there be a football, like a soccer prediction market that's unique to that goes deep, deep, deep into the kinds of things of like, well, how many seams are going to be, on the ball when it does the blah, blah, blah. Stuff that's so specific. And so when you look at this article, it basically says, we're going to create this window where for a period of 4 years, you're not going to have to demonstrate any financials or, quote, protections for your investors. We're basically going to say, if you have a startup idea and it's going to be somehow in crypto and you're going to be using some kind of a stable coin or currency or whatever, we're going to let you roll. You're going to get a 4-year window, the same way the U.S. president gets a 4-year window to create something, and no one's going to say anything to you. No one's going to call and sue you or say cease and desist. Just go innovate. And if that rolls through, I mean, I think we're going to see let's just say the stable doors explode open and the horses just start running and new all
This
day.
is the exact same thesis of what we were just getting at, of like new models, new products. We want to go create, you heard it here first on Off the Record, on the Rocks, a new stablecoin insurance product to invest in the derivative layers of the truth in a way that can aggregate across multiple markets to get at whatever those truth bets were, when there should be discrepancies between those bets, to give you insurance, right? There's a real mechanism for that now. And today, if you were going to go try to do that and run it as some kind of, multi-layer insurance property, it would be really difficult. But if you want to do that, and the SEC is saying there's this like innovation window that we're going to open up, And the way that there are these consumer and investor protections in place by the SEC of what's a security and what's not, now that's going to go away. We're going to like experiment. We don't know whether that token is a security or not, in whether it's a collectible moment where you're expecting a future outcome, a future profit. We don't know yet, because
We don't
that
know.
really was the definition, right, of what the SEC and the investment protections were supposed to, is that if you reasonably invested in something with a reasonable expectation of a future profit, then it
Hmm.
triggered all these things, these disclosures, these risk disclosures that nobody reads anyway when they click through those prospectuses. And plus, my AI bot is going to be able to read all of them for me. I don't know if you saw all of the 402 on April 2nd for the X402 protocol, Coinbase pumping, Bitcoin, what's his name, Dorsey talking about the new Bitcoin faucet, Square turned on Bitcoin payments. How is all of that related? Well, there's now programmable money entering the system. We've now got programmable agents called AI entering the system. We don't know about these prediction markets, but they're entering the system. And right now, all that massive convergence, the SEC is saying, to your point, go forth and innovate, and nobody's going to bother you. That's fascinating. Now's the time. I mean,
And again, like as someone who has started companies before, there's never ever been an insurance, a safety net, if you will, where an official from the federal government, or at least a regulatory body that's defined by the federal government, can say, hey, there's this window of time that we're all very familiar with. You've been to high school? You've been to college? Have you been the president of the United States? Then you can get a lot done in 4 years. Go ahead and get it done in 4 years. And now, what's going to happen when everyone's in year 3.5? I don't know, but it sounds really, really good out of the gate. 4 years in this cycle of new companies feels like a long time. If I rewind back 15, 20 years when I was starting a company in the Web 2 era, 4 years was kind of almost nothing. You're hiring people, you're opening up offices. I mean, just the brass tacks of running a business took time. Ordering chairs, printers, peoples. I got to print stuff out, staple it, and file it. Get some file cabinets in here. And that takes time. But now, if I get 3 Mac Minis and just run some OpenClaw and just start, creating a specific agent who's just going to go and look for optimization on my business, and I'm going to have basically a startup company with no employees except for these 3 little humming boxes, I think I could get a lot done in 2 years, much less 4. So that's why I just think this is one of those. We keep coming back to insurance. It's like it's been under our nose this whole time. If you've been to a casino and you've sat at a blackjack table and the dealer shows an ace and kind of checks their card and smiles and looks at everyone and wipes their hand across the board and says, insurance? And someone with a really large bet says, I'll take that. Oh, dealer shows 21. And then that person gets a little bit of a hedge back. This has been going on. So to think that it wouldn't exist in these new prediction markets, or wouldn't exist in starting new companies, like, we all know what that is. And I just feel like maybe it won't be called insurance because it sort of there's a dirtiness to that word in some contexts, but it really is what we're talking about. It's, hey, the government's going to provide a little fallback for you, a little sluff, so just go and risk more because we got you. We got your back. Trust us when you fall. We'll catch you. It all sounds really good. I'm kind of wondering what the twist is that we're not seeing out of the gate here.
we will see. We shall see for sure. It sounds like Social Security 2.0, and we are talking about all these ETFs and literally the crypto and the meme coins that are now going to start entering pension funds and retirement funds and 401ks around the United States. And that kind of is what we're talking about. Your Fidelity broker stuffs your 401k full of vision funds that are dated to 2030, which are baskets of companies that are expected to do well over the next 20 years, right? It's bets on derivatives already. But now there's a new investment, a new fallback, a new insurance that's going to be entering the market. It is right now, by the way, already entering the market with all of these new electronic traded funds that are tied specifically to Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and XRP and all of the names that we've been talking about for 3 and 4 years now. There is no doubt an intersection. It's also, to me, why AI has felt like this experiment ground without any rules and regulation. It's because we needed to get the money right first. Then the tool set can flourish once the finances can run. And the insurance betting and the Polymarkets, I think, was the next logical step. Okay, if we're going to update the system, we got programmable money. Everybody good on the programmable money? Everybody knows what's happening now? Everybody knows. Okay, guys, unleash the AI. Let it go. Let it fly. You want Sora. You want video. You want the AI to do your taxes. You want an agent to go out and run businesses. Great. We now know how all the money's going to transact. Bingo. We're good to go on that innovation. Hey, guys, we want to bet. We want to bet on what's going to come next because this is crazy. And here comes Kalshi and here comes Polymarkets.
Yeah, and for our listeners too, I think it's also really important to note that, when I sometimes just say the term, I was at an airport flying back from South by Southwest, as a matter of fact, and I ran into someone at the bar who was looking at my phone and asked me, what is that? Because I was looking at the Polymarket current bets or current investments and future outcomes of the Academy Awards. And it was pretty clearly showing who the leaders were in every category. And we talked about this last show, which is, well, that's got to be one of the most corruptible things because the humans know the answer before the show's aired. And they were fascinated. This guy was fascinated. He's like, what is this? I've never heard of this. And I realized just how outside of California, let's say, maybe outside of some tech circles on the East Coast or whatever, it just may not be as recognizable. Then, and so as a result, people will say like, well, that sounds, so fishy and this, and you can't spend 20 minutes telling someone why it's completely valid and legal and real, at least as of by today's standards. But then news articles hit where, well, all you have to say is, well, look, the New York Stock Exchange is backed by a holding company. It's called the Intercontinental Exchange. And I want to say this is going back 6 months, maybe 7 months. They invested $1 billion with a B dollars in Polymarket, the New York Stock Exchange's holding company, which signals so many things. Not only that this is the future and everyone needs to get behind it, because in a crazy future state, we might buy and sell shares of stocks and bonds on something more like a Polymarket than on the New York Stock Exchange. Because guess what? Polymarket's in everybody's pocket. And the New York Stock Exchange is like 1 or 2 steps removed with a financial manager and Schwab and my rules and my whatever. So they just hit the news yesterday. I think I hit you or whenever it was. Maybe it was last week. They went in another 600 million on Polymarket, and they're apparently tracking to go to 2 billion or more. So I think that the big wave moves that are in the ocean that you can't really see there is huge swells coming, giant legitimate businesses saying, hey, we've been doing this for a really long time, and we think that this is really important. We, the New York Stock Exchange, is fully stamping, certifying this case, Polymarket specifically, not Kalshi, and saying this is the future. This is the future of, quote, trading. And even when you load up the first front door, what does it say? Trade anything or trade everything? It has one of those insane little 2-word deals where it's like, yeah, you actually can search in the same way you can find every DIY video on YouTube. You can basically find every predictive future outcome on Polymarket. And if it's not there, you can add it.
You can now
it's
predict
the ultimate
future.
UGC market. And that's, and I don't think really anyone's appreciating how insane the investment is, because Intercontinental Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange don't just invest in stuff. This is very unusual behavior for such an old legacy institution.
The NYSE doesn't lose. I mean, that's where I'll put it. It's talk about front running markets. Who's going to find out first? But the marketplace themselves are going to know. And we've talked about the Texas Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
You haven't heard that break through, but I feel like that's why they're primed, is because now there's a new structure that's emerging that actually allows for the creation of a new marketplace. The barriers to entry to create a new marketplace to compete with NYSE actually got a little easier, because if it's 24/7 and it's done on chain, then you can run it. You don't require the physical space there in Wall Street with the bell ringing and Jim Cramer on the horn, right? You don't need it. It's not necessary anymore for a 24/7 trading. And I've used this word programmable money a couple of times, but the programmable markets, that's the other piece of this, of an agent being able to say, the black box trading, of like how they used to do this, buy low and sell high. The agent can do that for you now, and you can tell it your risk tolerance, and it can look for the types of companies that you are interested in. Again, the barriers to those entry points that used to you had to have a financial advisor who could help you navigate what that risk tolerance was. All of that goes away with new markets that are now in your pockets running 24/7. Yeah, no doubt that the NYSE is not going to lose that. That's why they're investing in that. And also, I think you couple that with this SEC window and the formation of new capital, new structure, new businesses that you could issue a token for that business. You could fractionalize the ownership on chain and go wild right now. And in 4 years, if you're like, guys, we want to go public, my guess is that if everything is done in a transparent way on Ledger, and you can show, here are the 100,000 wallets that invested $10 million in my company,
Mhm.
you effectively flip a switch and go public. Or weren't you already public if you were available as a blockchain-based token?
Or flip a switch, instantaneously instantiate a DAO with your 10 largest wallet funders, and then gather votes and information for them about the roadmap. Like, what you're saying is actually really interesting. It leads me to, though, something that I saw last night. I saw from my own eyes. I took video and photos, but a SpaceX booster rocket was visible shooting across the LA skyline as there was a couple of Starlink satellites that were being launched up into low Earth orbit. And these are those rockets that shoot across the skyline in a really crazy, they almost look out of control, to be honest. And they fly out over the Pacific Ocean and they land just nicely straight down on these platforms to then be reused, right? And it started getting me thinking about, so if you're taking this road and we're talking about all the things we're talking about, well, ultimately, what does it depend on? What is the success of predictive markets? What is the success of cryptocurrency, of AI? Is really end users and the access that end users have. And over the last decade, there's been a concerted push by hardware manufacturers, for sure, to try to get smartphones or low-cost laptops like we saw being handed out in, where was it? It was in Burma, Philippines, and different places. We're going to remote areas and getting people laptops to show, hey, here's how you can help optimize your business, even if you're in a really remote rural part of the world, which is fine. You can drive an iPhone to anywhere in the world and hand it to someone and explain it to them. But connectivity still is the number one hurdle to making it so that, quote, everyone in the world could be on Polymarket predicting the future. And that rocket that we saw last night is in the process of a slow and steady increase of adding these Starlink satellites. Like, even on your iPhone, if you have an iPhone, like, you look at it at home, sometimes you don't have connectivity and it will say, do you want to go satellite? Go outside and find a clear view of the stars, and you can still send a text. Well, that's pretty amazing when you think about that. Just the idea that even Apple today, at least in California, you can go out and do that. So where we're getting to by the end of this decade is enough satellites that are in low Earth orbit so you can be anywhere in the world and bet on the World Cup. You can be anywhere in the world and decide if you think the country that you're standing in might get invaded by next Tuesday. When you start to think about that, because right now, okay, Europe, maybe part of Asia, maybe the US are the ones who are driving this amount of money, the volume of these predictive future outcomes. But when the entire world is turned on, then suddenly that's the game changer. And that's, I think, what everyone's heading towards. But the infrastructure isn't there yet. In some ways, the software and the AI and the crypto is outpacing human access to all that, because we're going to be in an echo chamber with the same haves and have-nots predicting the same stuff that most of the world doesn't even care about. We need to kind of really, truly go local global, which we're not quite there yet.
Well, I think you got to get this money part right. You got to get the rails for these new payment infrastructures right, so that the U.S. is positioned in that global market accordingly. And I think that's what you're seeing come to fruition here, before our eyes. It's kind of, I hope we look back on this, April of 2026, and it's like we're right in the middle of what will feel like a very small moment uh, of of no clarity, of opaqueness that becomes very clear. And once those rules, are clear again, it's already happening. So I have to kind of keep that in mind. But yes, then I think the innovation wave, that a new round of initial coin offerings and new products and new insurance markets and new derivatives on Polymarkets, all of it becomes exactly where this stuff leads us to. Any closing thoughts for us here as we enter and stare down tax day?
I'm just, cautiously watching the world news and markets of just how deep are we going to find ourselves in an Iranian theater of war before tax day, before the start of summer, before all these key moments in in America slash the world. I mean, there is currently a team from Iran who is supposed to be competing in the Americas in the World Cup. And that's like 2 months, 2.5 months from now, 3 months from now. We just really hope that we get some clarity, not just from the regulators, not just clarity from the stars in the sky so we can send text via satellite, but some clarity about just humans trying to be a little bit more human and understanding and figuring out a way to extract ourselves from just so much conflict around the world. So my hope is of optimism that stronger and better minds can prevail as we navigate this, and it just doesn't turn into a bunch of inappropriate profiteering off of global intrigue.
Yeah.
The end of it
Let's
all.
hope that we have reached the bottom and seen the dark side of the moon, and that we're coming back home to realize that, this is where we have to be focused in, that it's no use trying to get to the moon if we can't take care of each other here. I think
There you
that's
go.
a good way to put it. We'll do it again next week, maybe once more, maybe coming to you live from Las Vegas. We'll see.
We'll have to see. I'll talk to you then.
Peace.